Dr. Kylan Vash held the healing crystal up to the light streaming through the laboratory window. The crystal glowed with a soft blue light, perfect for mending broken bones. He smiled as he placed it carefully in the storage container. Another successful synthesis. His people, the Zephyrians, had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of healing. Their crystals could cure diseases that plagued other worlds across the galaxy. The morning was peaceful on Thessia Prime. 3 suns hung in the purple sky, casting rainbow shadows through the crystal towers of the city. Children played in the floating gardens while their parents tended to the healing pools. No one carried weapons. No one even knew what weapons were for. The Zephyrians had evolved on a world where nothing wanted to hurt them. Kylan walked to the window and looked out at his beautiful city. The crystal spires reached toward the clouds, each one containing laboratories where his people worked to help others. Ships came from distant worlds to trade for their healing crystals. Everyone left happy. Everyone left healthy. The first shadow fell across his window at midday. Kylan looked up, expecting to see a cloud. Instead, he saw metal. A massive ship blocked out the first sun, then the second. More shadows fell as dozens of ships appeared in the sky. These were not like the gentle trading vessels that usually visited their world. These ships were dark and twisted, covered in sharp spikes and strange growths. The ships were enormous. Each one was larger than their biggest city. Kylan counted 12 of them before he stopped counting. His hands began to shake as he watched them descend through the atmosphere. "What are those?" asked Dr. Nemi, his research partner. She had joined him at the window, her large eyes wide with fear. "I don't know," Kylan whispered. "Nothing in our records looks like those ships." The first explosions came from the northern district. Bright flashes of green light erupted from the alien ships, striking the crystal towers. Where the light touched, the beautiful structures began to melt. The crystal became black and twisted, like a disease spreading through their city. Kylan grabbed the communication device from his desk. His fingers fumbled as he tried to contact the city leaders. The device crackled with static before connecting. "This is the City Council Emergency Channel," came a voice. It was Mayor Thren, but he sounded terrified. "All citizens must evacuate to the underground shelters immediately. We are under attack by unknown forces." "Attack?" Nemi asked. "What does that word mean?" Kylan didn't know either. Their language had no words for war or violence. They had to use old trading terms to describe what they were seeing. More explosions shook the building. Through the window, Kylan watched as strange creatures poured from the alien ships. They were like insects, but the size of ground vehicles. Their bodies were covered in sharp claws and teeth. They moved through the streets, entering buildings, and dragging out anyone they found. The creatures were taking his people. "We have to get to the shelters," Kylan said, grabbing a bag of healing crystals. "Come on." They ran through the corridors of the research center. Other Zephyrians were doing the same, their faces filled with confusion and terror. No one understood what was happening. Their peaceful world had no experience with anything like this. The building shook again as they reached the elevator. The lights flickered and went out. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red light. Kylan had never seen red emergency lights before. They had never needed them. In the elevator, they huddled with 6 other researchers. Everyone was asking the same questions. Who were these attackers? What did they want? Why were they hurting? People, Dr. Palin, the oldest among them, spoke in a shaky voice. "I remember stories from the old archives, legends about creatures that consumed entire worlds. I thought they were just stories to scare children." "What creatures?" Kylan asked. "The Devourers. They travel from world to world, taking everything. They eat civilizations." Palin's voice dropped to a whisper. "They leave nothing behind but empty planets." The elevator reached the underground shelter level. The doors opened to reveal chaos. Hundreds of Zephyrians filled the tunnel, all talking at once. Families held their children close. The elderly sat on the floor, too confused to stand. No one knew what to do. Kylan made his way through the crowd to the communication center. A group of technicians were working frantically at the control panels. Sparks flew from damaged equipment. "The main communication array is destroyed," one technician reported. "The attackers hit it in the first wave." "What about the emergency transmitter?" Kylan asked. "It's still working, but barely. We have maybe 10 minutes before they find it and destroy it too." Kylan felt his chest tighten. 10 minutes to call for help. But who could they call? Thessia Prime was far from the main trade routes. Their nearest neighbors were weeks away by normal space travel. Send a message to everyone, he said. All frequencies. Maximum power. The technician nodded and began setting up the transmission. Kylan sat down at the microphone. He had never made a distress call before. He didn't even know how to start. This is Dr. Kylan Vash of Thessia Prime, he began, his voice shaking. We are under attack by unknown forces. They are destroying our cities and taking our people. We have no defenses. We have no weapons. We don't know how to fight. He paused, listening to the explosions above. The building shook again and dust fell from the ceiling. We are a peaceful people, he continued. We make healing crystals that can cure diseases across the galaxy. Our medical knowledge has saved millions of lives on other worlds. We have helped anyone who asked for help. Another explosion, closer this time. The lights flickered. Please, Kylan said, his voice breaking. Anyone who can hear this message. We are dying. We have 3 days, maybe less, before they finish with our world. We are located in Sector 779, third planet from the star Thessia. We are not warriors. We are healers, but we will share everything we know with anyone who helps us. The building shook violently. Chunks of concrete fell from the ceiling. People screamed in the shelter tunnels. This is our final message, Kylan said. We are the Zephyrians of Thessia Prime. We sent healing to the galaxy. Now we need someone to save us. Please, anyone. The communication equipment sparked and went dead. The transmission was over. Kylan sat in the darkness, surrounded by his terrified people. Above them, the attackers continued their work. The beautiful crystal city was dying. His peaceful world was ending. But somewhere in space, the message was traveling at the speed of light. It carried the desperate plea of a dying civilization to anyone who might listen. Far away, in a place Kylan had never heard of, a human captain named Sarah Chen sat in the command chair of a ship called the Indomitable. She was reviewing star charts when the communication officer called out, Captain, we're receiving a distress signal. Unknown origin, very weak signal. Put it through, Chen said. The bridge fell silent as Kylan's message played. When it ended, Chen looked at her crew. These humans had traveled far from their home world, exploring the galaxy and making maps. They were not soldiers, but they were not defenseless either. How long to reach their position? Chen asked. 3 days at maximum warp, Captain, the navigator replied. Chen stood up from her chair. She thought about the voice in the message, the fear, the confusion. A peaceful people who didn't even know how to ask for help properly. Set course for Thessia Prime, she ordered. All ships maximum speed and wake up the Marines. The human fleet turned toward a world they had never heard of, to save people they had never met. They didn't know they were about to change the galaxy forever. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the briefing room of the Terran Expedition fleet ship Indomitable. The holographic display showed a star map with their current position and their destination. The red dot marking Thessia Prime seemed very small and very far away. 3 days, she said to her senior staff. That's how long we have to figure out what we're walking into. Commander Jake Morrison leaned forward in his chair. He was the ship's security chief and former Earth military. His job was supposed to be protecting the expedition from space pirates and equipment failures. Not this. Captain, we don't know anything about these attackers, he said. The Zephyrians called them Devourers, but that doesn't tell us much. Could be anything from raiders to some kind of hive mind. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the chief science officer, pulled up another display. It showed the technical analysis of the distress signal. The transmission was clean until the end. Whatever hit their communication array hit it hard and fast. Professional work. What about the Zephyrians themselves? Chen asked. What do we know about them? Almost nothing, Rodriguez admitted. They're not in any of our databases. The sector they're in is marked as uninhabited on all our charts. Either our surveys missed them or they don't travel much. Morrison studied the star charts. 3 days to get there. No backup, no intel. And we're not equipped for a military operation. Chen nodded. The Terran Expedition fleet was made up of exploration vessels, research ships, and supply transports. They had defensive weapons and security teams, but they were designed for mapping unknown space, not fighting wars. What's our force strength? She asked. Morrison brought up the fleet roster. 5 ships total. The Indomitable and the Horizon are our main vessels. They have the best weapons and shields. The Discovery and the Pathfinder are research ships, with light armament. The Endeavor is a transport with no weapons at all. Personnel? Total of 800 people across all ships, 60 trained security personnel. The rest are scientists, engineers, and support crew. Dr. Rodriguez looked uncomfortable. Captain, I have to ask, are we really doing this? First contact protocols exist for a reason. We don't know these people. We don't know their politics or their history. Chen walked to the viewing port and stared out at the stars. I listened to that message, Elena. Did you hear fear in that man's voice? Yes, but did you hear anything that sounded like deception? Like a trap? Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. No, he sounded genuinely terrified. People are dying, Chen said. Maybe a lot of people, maybe an entire species, and we might be the only ones who can help them. Morrison cleared his throat. Captain, even if we want to help, we need to be realistic. If these devourers can destroy a planetary civilization, what can we do against them? Chen turned back to the group. We do what humans do best, Jake. We adapt. Over the next 2 days, the Terran fleet transformed itself. The engineering crews worked around the clock, turning peaceful exploration vessels into improvised warships. Dr. Rodriguez led the effort to weaponize their scientific equipment. The geological survey lasers became makeshift cannons. The asteroid mining charges were converted into torpedoes. Even the atmospheric probe launchers were modified to fire explosive projectiles. Morrison trained volunteer fighters from among the crew. Scientists learned to use emergency weapons. Engineers practiced damage control procedures. The ship's cooks learned basic first aid. In the Endeavor's cargo bay, Chief Engineer Tom Roberts supervised the construction of something that had never been built before. It was part bomb, part missile, and part suicide weapon. If everything else failed, they would have one last option. The closer they got to Thessia Prime, the more information they gathered. Long-range sensors picked up energy signatures from the planet. Some were alien and hostile. Others were fading fast. The attackers are still there, reported Lieutenant Kim Park, the sensor officer. I'm reading at least 12 large vessels in orbit, and there's something else. What? Debris. Lots of it. I think they're systematically destroying everything in orbit around the planet. Chen felt her jaw tighten. These weren't raiders looking for loot. They were destroyers. On the morning of the third day, the human fleet dropped out of warp at the edge of the Thessia system. What they saw made everyone on the bridge fall silent. Thessia Prime had been a beautiful world. Even from this distance, they could see the crystal cities that Dr. Vash had mentioned. But now half the planet was dark. Massive fires burned across entire continents. The orbital space was filled with wreckage. The enemy ships were enormous. Each one was at least 3 times the size of the Indomitable. They had a strange, organic appearance, like they had been grown rather than built. Sharp spines and twisted protrusions covered their hulls. 12 confirmed hostiles, Park reported. They're in a loose formation around the planet. Wait, they've detected us. On the main screen, the alien ships began to move. They turned toward the human fleet with predatory grace. Battle stations, Chen ordered. All ships prepare for combat. The bridge lights switched to red. Weapon systems came online. The crew moved to their positions with grim determination. Captain, Morrison said, we're outnumbered 12-5, and they're bigger than us. Size isn't everything, Commander. Elena, what did the analysis tell us about their weapons? Rodriguez checked her readings. Bioplasma-based, from what we can tell from the residue on the debris. Highly corrosive, designed to dissolve matter at the molecular level. Nasty, Chen muttered. But they've probably never fought anything like us before. The first alien. Ship fired. A stream of green energy lanced across space toward the Indomitable. The bridge crew braced for impact. The ship's shields flared as the bioplasma struck them. Sparks flew from control panels, but the shields held. Minimal damage, Park reported, sounding surprised. Our shields are actually holding up better than expected. Morrison smiled grimly. Earth shields, built to handle solar radiation and cosmic storms. These things might dissolve most materials, but they can't get through good old human engineering. Return. Fire, Chen ordered. The Indomitable's modified mining lasers struck the alien ship. The weapons weren't designed for ship-to-ship combat, but they were built to cut through solid rock. They sliced into the organic hull, creating deep wounds in the enemy vessel. The battle was joined. The human ships spread out, using tactics learned from centuries of naval warfare on Earth. They didn't try to match the aliens' firepower. Instead, they used speed and unpredictability. The Horizon and Discovery worked together, one ship drawing fire while the other flanked the enemy. The Pathfinder used its sensor equipment to jam enemy targeting systems. Even the unarmed Endeavor played a role, using its powerful engines to ram damaged alien ships. The aliens had never fought anyone like this before. Their previous victims had been peaceful civilizations that surrendered quickly. The humans fought with a ferocity that shocked them. When the Horizon's main weapons were destroyed, the crew began firing their converted probe launchers. When the Discovery lost its shields, Captain Torres ordered his ship to ram the nearest enemy vessel. For 2 hours, the space around Thessia Prime burned with the light of battle. Both sides took heavy damage, but slowly, the humans began to gain the upper hand. Then the largest alien ship, which had stayed back from the fighting, began to move toward the planet. "It's heading for the surface," Park reported. "It's going to finish off whatever's left of the population." Chen made her decision. "All ships pursue. We're taking this fight to the ground." The human fleet followed the alien mothership into Thessia Prime's atmosphere. Below them, the crystal cities burned. But in the underground tunnels, Dr. Kylan Vash and his people were still alive. They were about to meet their saviors. The alien mothership descended through the burning atmosphere of Thessia Prime like a falling mountain. Behind it, the 5 human vessels followed, their hulls glowing red from atmospheric entry. Captain Sarah Chen watched the surface of the dying world grow larger on her screen. "Landing zones identified," reported Lieutenant Park. "The alien ship is heading for the main population center. There are still life signs in the underground areas." Commander Morrison studied the tactical display. "Captain, if we land near the alien ship, we'll be fighting on their terms. Open ground, no cover." Chen shook her head. "We're not landing near them, Jake. We're landing on them." The Indomitable shuddered as Chen fired the engines at full power, aiming directly at the alien other ship. The other human ships followed her lead. This wasn't a landing. It was a controlled crash. The alien ship tried to evade, but it was too large and too close to the surface. The Indomitable struck it amidships, tearing through the organic hull. The impact threw both ships into the crystal city below. In the underground tunnels, Dr. Kylan Vash felt the ground shake. For 3 days, he and 2,000 other Zephyrians had hidden in the shelter system, listening to the sounds of their world dying above them. Now something new was happening. "The explosions have changed," said Dr. Nemi. "They sound different." Kylan pressed his ear to the tunnel wall. She was right. The steady rhythm of destruction had been broken by something chaotic. Multiple explosions, the sound of metal tearing, and something else. New voices on the emergency frequencies. "This is Captain Chen of the Terran Expedition Fleet," came a voice through the damaged communication system. "Any Zephyrian survivors? Please respond. We're here to help." The shelter fell silent. Terran? No one had heard of Terrans before. "This is Dr. Kylan Vash," he responded, his hands shaking as he operated the communicator. "We sent the distress message. Are you really here to help us?" "That's affirmative, Doctor. We're on the surface now, engaging the hostiles. Can you guide us to your position?" Above ground, the battle had become savage and personal. The crash had damaged both ships, but the humans were already adapting. They used the wreckage as cover, setting up defensive positions in the ruins of the Crystal City. Morrison led the first team out of the Indomitable. 20 security personnel and 30 volunteers, armed with pulse rifles and improvised weapons. They moved through the twisted metal of the alien ship, hunting the creatures inside. The aliens, the Devourers, as the Zephyrians called them, were unlike anything in human databases. They stood 3 meters tall on 6 legs, with bodies covered in natural armor plates. Their heads were mostly mouth, filled with rows of grinding teeth. They had been designed by evolution to consume and destroy, but they had never met anything from Earth before. The first group of Devourers that encountered the humans expected easy prey. They had conquered dozens of worlds, facing species that panicked and ran at the first sign of violence. The humans did neither. Morrison's team opened fire with military precision. Their pulse rifles were designed for exploration missions, not warfare, but they fired armor-piercing rounds that could punch through asteroid rock. Against the Devourer's natural armor, they were devastatingly effective. The aliens fell back, confused. Their previous victims had been herbivores and peaceful traitors. These new creatures fought like predators, moving in coordinated groups and using cover like they had been born to warfare. Dr. Elena Rodriguez led the second team toward the Zephyrian shelters. Her mission was to establish contact with the survivors and assess their medical needs. She carried a portable laboratory and a security escort of 10 people. The path to the shelters led through the burning city. Crystal towers had melted into twisted sculptures. The beautiful floating gardens hung in ruins. Bodies of Zephyrians lay in the streets, but Rodriguez's team kept moving. "Contact front," called Sergeant Williams, one of the security escorts. A group of smaller devourers was blocking their path. These were scouts, designed for hunting down hiding survivors. The firefight was brief and brutal. The devourers tried to surround the humans using tactics that had worked on other worlds. But humans had learned to fight in groups on the African savanna millions of years ago. They formed a defensive circle and poured concentrated fire into the alien formation. Within minutes, the scouts were dead. "Jesus," Williams muttered, looking at the alien bodies. "What the hell are these things?" "Apex predators," Rodriguez replied, scanning one of the corpses with her instruments. "But they evolved on a world with weak prey. They don't know how to fight something that fights back." Meanwhile, Captain Chen had found the entrance to the shelter system. The heavy blast doors were damaged but still sealed. She knocked on the metal with the butt of her rifle. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. The old Earth distress signal. After a moment, the doors opened. Dr. Kylan Vash stood in the entrance, flanked by a group of Zephyrian adults. Chen got her first look at the people she had come to save. They were tall and thin, with large eyes and delicate features. Their skin had a faint blue tint that reminded her of Arctic ice. They moved gracefully like dancers, and their clothing was made of some kind of flowing fabric that seemed to glow with its own light. They were also clearly terrified. "You're the Terrans?" Dr. Vash asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "That's right," Chen replied, removing her helmet. "Captain Sarah Chen, Terran Expedition Fleet. Are you Dr. Vash?" "Yes, you came. We didn't think anyone would come." Chen looked past him into the tunnel. Hundreds of Zephyrians filled the underground space, all staring at the humans with expressions of wonder and fear. "We came as fast as we could," she said. "But we need to move quickly. How many survivors do you have?" "About 2,000 in this shelter complex. Maybe another 1,000 scattered in other locations across the planet." Chen nodded. 3,000 people left from what had probably been a population of millions. "We're going to get you out of here, but I need you to understand something. We're not peacekeepers or diplomats. We're going to have to fight our way through those things up there." Dr. Vash looked confused. "Fight? I don't understand that word." Chen stared at him. "You don't know what fighting means?" "We are healers," Dr. Vash explained. "We make medicine and help sick people. Our world has no violence. We don't have words for what you're describing." For a moment, Chen didn't know what to say. These people were completely innocent. They had never seen war, never experienced violence, never even imagined that one thinking being could deliberately hurt another. And now they were in the middle of hell. "Doctor," she said gently, "I'm going to teach you some new words. And I'm sorry I have to." Explosions echoed through the tunnels as more devourers found the shelter entrances. The sounds were getting closer. First word, enemy. That's what those creatures are. They want to hurt you and your people. The ground shook as pulse rifle fire erupted nearby. Morrison's voice crackled over the radio. "Captain, we've got multiple contacts moving toward the main shelter. Big ones." "Second, word weapon. That's what we use to stop enemies." Chen checked her rifle and chambered a round. "Third word, war. That's what happens when good people have to fight bad people to protect the innocent." She looked at Dr. Vash's frightened face. "And the last word you need to know is victory. That's what we're going to achieve today." The devourers reached the shelter entrance just as Chen finished speaking. They poured through the tunnels like a living wave of teeth and claws, expecting to find cowering prey. Instead, they found something they had never encountered before in all their conquests across the galaxy. They found humans who were angry. The tunnel filled with the sound of pulse rifle fire as the devourers charged into the shelter entrance. Captain Chen pushed Dr. Vash behind her and opened fire, her weapon lighting up the darkness with rapid flashes. The lead devourer took 3 shots to the chest before falling. The one behind it stumbled over the body and took a burst of fire from Sergeant Williams. But more kept coming. "Fall back to secondary position," Chen shouted over the noise. "Civilians to the back tunnels." Dr. Vash watched in amazement and horror as the humans fought. They moved like nothing he had ever seen. Quick, precise, deadly. Each human seemed to know exactly where the others were, working together like parts of a single organism. The Zephyrians fled deeper into the tunnel system, carrying their children and helping their elderly. They had no experience with running from danger. Their gentle world had never taught them to fear anything. This way, Dr. Nemi called, leading a group toward the medical storage areas. The tunnels are narrower there. Maybe the creatures can't follow, but Dr. Vash stayed near the humans, fascinated despite his terror. He watched Captain Chen reload her weapon with smooth practice motions. Every movement was efficient, wasting no time or energy. "Doctor," Chen called to him, "I need you to tell me about these tunnels. Are there other ways for those things to get down here?" "Yes," Vash replied, his voice shaking. "There are maintenance shafts and emergency exits throughout the system. 7 major access points." "Jake," Chen spoke into her radio, "7 entrances total. We need to cover them all." Morrison's voice crackled back. "Captain, we've got maybe 40 people total. We can't cover 7 positions. Then we make them come to us." "Rodriguez, what's your position?" "Medical Bay, level 3. Came Dr. Rodriguez's voice. "I've got about 30 Zephyrian wounded here. They're in bad shape, but their healing technology is incredible." Dr. Vash perked up at this. "You're using our medical crystals?" "Your people are teaching us," Rodriguez replied over the radio. "Doctor, your healing methods are amazing, but you're doing them wrong." "Wrong?" Vash looked confused. Chen glanced at him while reloading again. "Elena, explain later. Right now we need to consolidate our positions." The sound of metal tearing echoed through the tunnels. The Devourers were breaking through the blast doors at multiple points. "All teams, fall back to the central hub," Chen ordered. "We're going to make our stand there." As they retreated through the tunnel system, Dr. Vash got his first real look at how the humans worked. They didn't just run, they conducted a fighting withdrawal. Some humans would hold a position while others moved back, then leapfrog past them to the next defensive point. They used the tunnel architecture to their advantage, setting up crossfires and choke points. They turned the Zephyrians' own peaceful infrastructure into a fortress. The central hub was a large circular chamber where 7 tunnels met. It had been designed as a gathering place for community meetings. Now it became a battlefield. Morrison arrived first with his team, already setting up defensive positions. "Captain, the tunnels are perfect for us. These things are too big to maneuver well in confined spaces." Dr. Rodriguez's team arrived next, helping wounded Zephyrians to the center of the chamber. Behind them came the bulk of the civilian population, nearly 2,000 terrified but hopeful people. "Elena," Chen called, "what did you mean about them doing their healing wrong?" Rodriguez knelt beside a wounded Zephyrian who had been caught in the initial attack. The poor creature had burns across half his body from the Devourer's bioplasma. "Weapons, watch," she said, placing one of the Zephyrian healing crystals against the wound. The crystal glowed, and the burned tissue began to regenerate. But slowly. "Now watch this." Rodriguez took a scanner from her medical kit and examined the wound more carefully. "The crystal needs to know exactly what kind of tissue to rebuild. Your people just hold it near the wound and hope for the best." She used the scanner to map the damaged area, then programmed the information into a small device that she placed against the crystal. The healing accelerated dramatically. Dr. Vash stared in amazement. "You're directing the crystal's energy precisely to each type of tissue. We never thought to do that." "Your crystals are miraculous," Rodriguez said, "but you need better diagnostic tools. Human medical scanners combined with your healing crystals could revolutionize galactic medicine." The sound of approaching Devourers interrupted their conversation. The creatures had found the central hub. "Contacts in all 7 tunnels," Williams reported from his position. "They're coordinating their approach." Chen studied the tactical situation. 7 tunnels, 40 humans, 2,000 civilians to protect. The math wasn't good. "Jake, I want you to take half the team and seal off 4 of those tunnels. Use the mining charges. Force them to come at us from only 3 directions." Morrison nodded and took 20 people toward the smaller tunnels. The sound of explosions echoed through the chamber as they collapsed the passages. "That's not going to hold them long," Morrison reported. "These things can dig. It doesn't have to hold them long," Chen replied. "Elena, how long to rig up those enhanced healing stations?" "Give me 10 minutes with some help. You've got 5 minutes and all the help you need." Chen turned to Dr. Vash. "Doctor, I need every Zephyrian who knows anything about your healing." "Technology. We're going to need it." The first wave of Devourers broke through the remaining 3 tunnels simultaneously. They had learned from their previous encounters and were adapting their tactics. But so were the humans. The pulse rifle fire was disciplined and controlled. Each human knew their sector of fire and didn't waste ammunition. They used the chamber's architecture to create overlapping fields of fire that the Devourers couldn't avoid. But the aliens kept coming. For every one that fell, 2 more took its place. "We're running low on ammunition," Williams reported. Chen made a decision that would have shocked any civilized species in the galaxy. "Fix bayonets. Prepare for close combat." The humans attached blade weapons to their rifles and prepared to fight hand-to-hand against creatures twice their size. To the watching Zephyrians, it looked like suicide. To the humans, it was just another day ending in Y. The Devourers broke through the defensive line just as Dr. Rodriguez finished setting up the enhanced healing stations. The battle became a chaotic melee in the center of the chamber. Dr. Vash watched in fascination as a human named Peters fought a Devourer 3 times his size. The alien had all the advantages: size, strength, natural weapons, armor plating. But Peters had something the Devourer didn't understand. Peters had millions of years of human evolution behind him. Ancestors who had fought cave bears with pointed sticks. Grandparents who had survived 2 world wars. Parents who had colonized hostile worlds with nothing but determination and ingenuity. Peters ducked under the Devourer's claws, drove his bayonet into a joint in its armor, twisted the blade to cause maximum damage, then rolled away before the creature could grab him. The Devourer fell, and Peters was already moving toward the next target. All around the chamber, similar scenes played out. Humans who had been peaceful explorers and scientists just days before fought with a savagery that stunned their enemies. But the battle was taking its toll. Half the humans were wounded. Ammunition was almost gone. The Devourers kept coming. Then Chief Engineer Roberts' voice came over the radio from orbit. "Captain, this is the Endeavor. The package is ready." Chen smiled grimly. The package, Roberts' improvised superweapon, built in the transport ship's cargo bay. "Tom, are you sure about this?" "Captain, these things killed a whole planet full of innocent people." "I'm very sure." Chen looked around the chamber, at her wounded people, at the terrified Zephyrians, at Dr. Vash, who was learning to bandage human wounds with his healing crystals. "Do it, Tom." High above, the cargo transport Endeavor began its final dive toward the planet's surface. In its hold, Chief Engineer Roberts sat next to the largest explosive device ever built by human hands. He was smiling. The Endeavor streaked through Thessia Prime's atmosphere like a falling star. In the underground chamber, Captain Chen watched the tactical display on her wrist communicator. The transport ship was on a collision course with the largest Devourer mothership on the planet's surface. "All teams brace for impact," she announced over the radio. "Tom's about to give these bastards a surprise they'll never forget." Dr. Kylan Vash looked up from where he was using a healing crystal on a wounded human soldier. "What is happening?" he asked. "Justice," Chen replied simply. The explosion could be felt 50 kilometers underground. The entire tunnel system shook as Chief Engineer Roberts and the Endeavor delivered their final gift to the Devourers. The improvised superweapon, a fusion reactor overloaded with every piece of explosive material on the ship, created a fireball visible from orbit. The massive alien mothership simply ceased to exist. The smaller Devourers in the underground tunnel suddenly stopped their attack. They stood motionless for several seconds as if listening to something the humans couldn't hear. Then, one by one, they began to retreat. "They're falling back," Morrison reported, sounding amazed. "All contacts are withdrawing from all positions." Chen didn't lower her weapon. "It's not over yet. Stay alert." But Dr. Vash understood what had happened. "The mothership was their command center," he said. "They're like insects. They can't function without their queen." Over the next hour, the retreat became a rout. The surviving Devourer ships in orbit began leaving the system. Without their primary command vessel, their coordination collapsed. The species that had conquered dozens of worlds was fleeing from one small human expedition fleet. Dr. Elena Rodriguez worked frantically at her makeshift medical station, treating both human and Zephyrian wounded. The combination of human diagnostic equipment and Zephyrian healing crystals was performing miracles. "Doctor, Vash," she called. "Can you help me with this patient?" Vash hurried over to where a human Marine lay unconscious. The man had taken a direct hit from a Devourer's claws, leaving deep wounds across his chest. "The healing crystal alone won't work fast enough," Rodriguez explained. "But if we use your technique combined with our surgical methods, together, they work to save the Marine's life." Rodriguez used human technology to map the exact damage, while Vash guided the healing crystal's energy with precision they had never achieved before. The Marine's wounds closed. His breathing stabilized. His eyes opened. "Did we win?" he asked weakly. "Yeah." Rodriguez smiled. "We won." Captain Chen made her way through the chamber, checking on her people and the Zephyrian survivors. The cost had been heavy. 12 humans, dead including Chief Engineer Roberts and his entire crew. 23 wounded, but they had saved nearly 3,000 Zephyrian lives. More importantly, they had introduced themselves to the galaxy in a way that would be remembered forever. Dr. Vash approached Chen as she stood looking at the tactical display. The last Devourer ships were disappearing into hyperspace. "Captain," he said quietly, "why did you come? You didn't know us. We had nothing to offer you. Why did your people sacrifice so much for strangers?" Chen was quiet for a long moment. How could she explain humanity to someone who had never known violence or hatred or the choice between good and evil? "Doctor," she finally said, "my people come from a dangerous world. We learned early that sometimes the only choice is between fighting and dying. But we also learned something else." "What?" "We learned that the fight is only worth it if you're protecting something good." She gestured around the chamber at the Zephyrians caring for wounded humans. "You people are good. You spend your lives healing others. That's worth fighting for." Dr. Vash nodded slowly. "We have much to learn about the galaxy. It is not as peaceful as we thought." "No," Chen agreed. "It's not, but it's not as hopeless as some people think either. There are species like yours that create and heal, and there are species like mine that protect and defend. Together, we might make things better." Over the following weeks, the human fleet worked with the surviving Zephyrians to rebuild their civilization. The crystal cities couldn't be restored, but new settlements were built with human defensive technology integrated into their peaceful architecture. Dr. Rodriguez and Dr. Vash collaborated on medical advances that would benefit the entire galaxy. Human diagnostic tools combined with Zephyrian healing crystals created treatment methods that seemed almost magical. Captain Chen worked with the Zephyrian leaders to establish communication networks that would ensure they were never isolated and helpless again. But the most important work was done in the simple interactions between the two species. Humans learning the Zephyrian philosophy of healing and growth. Zephyrians learning the human concepts of courage and sacrifice. 3 months after the battle, Dr. Vash stood in the rebuilt communication center of New Thessia, the largest of the settlement cities. He was preparing to send a message that would change the course of galactic history. "This is Dr. Keelan Vash of the Zephyrian people," he began. 3 months ago, we sent a distress call into the darkness, hoping someone would hear our plea for help. Someone did." He paused, looking through the window at the construction crews, human and Zephyrian working side by side, rebuilding their world. "The species called humans answered our call. They came from a world they call Earth, traveling across vast distances to reach strangers they had never met. They brought no conditions for their help. They asked for no payment. They simply came, because people were dying." In the background he could hear the sound of children playing. Zephyrian and human children, learning each other's games. "I want all civilizations to know about the humans of Earth. They are warriors unlike any species we have encountered. They fight with a ferocity that can seem terrifying, but they only use this ferocity to protect the innocent." A human engineer walked past the window, carrying plans for the new defensive grid that would protect the planet. "The humans saved us, but more than that, they became our friends. They are teachers and students, healers and protectors, scientists and soldiers. They are what we all hope to be when we grow up as a species." Dr. Vash looked at the photograph on his desk. Captain Chen and her crew standing with the Zephyrian survivors after the battle. Heroes and victims now simply friends. To any species listening to this message, if you are in trouble, if you face enemies you cannot defeat, if you need help that no one else will give, call for the humans. Send a message to Earth. They will come. They will fight for you. They will die for you if necessary. He took a deep breath. "And to the humans of Earth, if you receive this message, thank you. Thank you for showing us that the galaxy is not just full of predators and prey. Thank you for proving that some species will cross the void to help strangers. Thank you for being who you are." The message ended, but its effects would ripple across the galaxy for generations. Within a year, dozens of species had made contact with Earth. Some came seeking protection. Others came offering friendship. A few came looking for trade agreements. All of them came because they had heard the story of the day the Deathworlders answered an SOS with might, compassion, and an unshakable determination to protect the innocent. The humans had entered the galactic community not as conquerors or supplicants, but as the species others called when the monsters came calling. And in the crystal archives of New Thessia, children would read the story for centuries to come, the story of the day their world died and strangers from a distant star brought it back to life. The story of the day they learned that sometimes the most dangerous thing in the galaxy is someone who cares enough to fight for others. The story of the humans.